Good afternoon, everyone. We are continuing on our study in the book of Numbers. Today, we are covering chapter 8. Now, remember the last time we left chapter 7, we were talking about how the 12 tribes came in 6 carts and presented gifts and offerings to God, and thereby celebrating the inaugural start of the tabernacle. And the Lord spoke to Moses down in chapter 8 because the 12 tribes did not include the tribe of Levi or the Levites. And we will be looking at the Levites right now. Now, recall, this is a time where it is 1 year after the Exodus, and this is called the second year, basically. And it is at this point in time where the tabernacle was set up, it was dedicated, inaugurated, and now comes the point in time where the Lord, and we always remember this as Jehovah, and he spoke to Moses. Now, always remember the patterns from Exodus chapter 19 was that the people was afraid of God speaking to them, and so they relegated all interaction with God to Moses. And so from there on, we always see God speaking to Moses and then Moses speaking to the people. And so God spoke to Moses to say this: talk to Aaron or Aaron, his brother. Now say this to him: when you arrange the lambs, the 7 lambs shall give light. The word here, the key word is in front of the lampstand. Now understand that this is about, how should you say? Uh, it is when you ascend the lamps, it means that if you recall, there is the lampstand, and there are, right? And there are 7, right? There are 7. And so the arrangement of lampstand, and many of the Jewish commentators believe that it's a big one. And so there are steps. And of course, they didn't have ladder in those days, so they have to step up to light the lamp. And so when you ascend and you bring these lamps up, which means that each of these will have to have a lamp, and that's the I guess that's an attempt to picture the lamp. Uh, the words here is, when you call the lambs, these are the lambs, right? I presume it would be something like that, and there would be a wick that will come up, and the light will come here, right? That would be the flame. Uh, and that lamp would be placed on each of this. Okay. And there will be 7 lamps, and it will give light to the front of the lamp. Now, the front of the lamp, there are 2 words here. This would be with reference to the front face. There are 2 words here: front face of the lampstand, which is the menorah. So understand that these are not individuals. This is all facing to each other. So the idea here is that the lamps would have the wicks facing the center. And so this side, I guess you would say, this side will point there and this side will point there. And this would be the centerpiece. All right. And so it is somehow it is arranged in such a way where everything is pointing towards the center, and that would be what they call the front face of the lamb. And Aaron did exactly that. And so what he did was he arranged, or he ascended the lambs face toward the front of the lampstand, the menorah, just as God commanded Moses, telling us that Aaron is very compliant because he is the high priest, and he is in service of God. And if God said so, then it must be so. I think it would behoove anyone to say, why would God want to do that? And these questions would never arise. Why? Because God said it, and so be it. Just do it. You don't really need to have a clear idea and answer to every ritual that has to be done. So God wanted to be arranged a certain way, and hence it was done. Now, this workmanship of the lampstand of the menorah was hammered gold, which means that the entire menorah, all of this, is one piece. You need to understand, from its shaft to its flowers was hammered work, according to the pattern, the blueprint, which God had shown Moses. Now, verse 4 gives us this picture that I think we could refer to Exodus chapter 25. And it describes exactly how the lampstand and the menorah is done. And so it was done according to the pattern that was shown to Moses, and he made the lampstand. Now, obviously, he didn't personally make the lampstand, and God had appointed workmen to do that. But what is important is the little details with regards to the tabernacle has to be very closely complied. And one would realize that God is a God of details. He wants specific things done. And these are the things, when he wants it done, there is no leeway for them to do otherwise. And that, I think, is very interesting. Now comes the question of the Levites, because last week we saw all the 12 tribes bringing gifts to the tabernacle. Then the Lord spoke to Moses, saying, take the Levi from among the children of Israel and cleanse them. Now we need to strike this off because this word does not exist. This whole passage now begins the sanctification of the Levites. The idea of be clean is, you could say, purify. Purify them to do a ritual that can make them clean. Now, it's not wrong ceremonially, it's just that the words are not there in the original Hebrew. So thus, in this way, you shall do to them to cleanse them. Understand that this idea of cleaning is really to make them ritually clean. Now, this idea of sprinkle water, I guess sprinkle is actually a good word. You can actually imagine how water is sprinkled or spattered. Spattered water of purification. Water of purification is water that is made for such purposes. And if we are aware, God actually does describe how some of these things are to be done. Again, God's tabernacle, God's way of doing things, not our way of doing things. I think that would be something which we need to be very clear. And so that's what they do. They bring cleansing water. Some say that this would have been the ashes with the ashes of the red heifer, the red cow. This is part of the inauguration in the water, and it's sprinkled on them. Perhaps that is what we call cleansing water. And let them shave all their body. This word shave, the word shave means to pass the knife, right? Knife or razor, we'll call it. And that is what shave means. No hair. All their body is clean like a baby. And let them wash their clothes and so make themselves clean. And so this is very much about washing. Washing the garment, and the old way of washing garment, I think we can be, you can find it interesting, is that they will tread. They'll step on their clothes to wash their clothes. Very, very similar to ancient Chinese practices. And so make them clean. Now, clean again here is clean for the purification process. And let them take a young bull with its grain offering of fine flour. We'll read this in Leviticus chapter 1. Mix with oil, and then you shall take another young bull. So we have two bulls, 1 and 2. The second bull is for a chatat, a sin offering that is for unintentional sins. With regards to the tabernacle, which means that whatever they may do, whether they know it or they don't know, and most likely they don't, that they might have offended God of making themselves unclean in some way, then they have to offer this second bull as a sin offering. And then you shall bring the Levites before the tabernacle of the meeting. Now, before the tabernacle of the meeting means to the face, right? The face or faces of the tabernacle of meeting, which means that it would be at the entrance, right? At the entrance. This tabernacle of the meeting would be the Ohel of Moab, which likely would be that particular tent right in the whole tabernacle framework and the courtyard. There will be in the center where the sanctuary and the Holy of Holies would be. And that would be that tabernacle, the Ohel of Moab. And then you shall gather together the whole congregation of the children of Israel. By children of Israel, it's the sons of Israel. The whole congregation will be the whole assembly. Interestingly, whenever they talk about gathering themselves as the assembly, you find that they are talking most likely about the leaders in the front, right? Because you can't get about 1 million people standing around. And so you shall bring the Levites before the Lord, and the children of Israel shall lay their hands on the Levites. This is a very interesting ritual, I would say. You bring them to the faces of the Lord, which means that the Levites will be standing in front of the tent, and that would be before God, because inside the tent is where God meets with Moses in the Holy of Holies, where the Ark of the Covenant with the covering called the mercy seat, that God's presence will be. The second thing that they need to do, that the sons of Israel shall lay their hands the idea of lay their hands is to rest their hands, or to lean their hands, or to support their hands. That's what lay actually means. It is with pressure, and they would be putting their hands, and in this case, their hands is in the plural, and it is on the Levites, the person, right? On the persons. That would be all 11 tribes on the 12 tribes. And Aaron shall offer the Levites before the Lord, like a wave offering from the sons of Israel, that they may perform the work of the Lord. Now let's break this down. First, Aaron, he is the high priest. And in verse 11, we're talking about making an offering. And the word offering here is like a wave offering. This is a swing offering, which we see that in the Feast of First Fruits and also on the day of Pentecost. And the high priest offering is quite interesting, because this word here is shall wave, right? Shall wave the Levites before the Lord. Now, how do you wave the Levites before the Lord? You can't carry them up and shake them down. But the whole idea is it's actually a ritual, very much a wave offering, because a wave offering is a offering to God that is not burnt, that is not slaughtered. It is uncooked in that sense. And this is a live offering from the sons of Israel. So the Levites actually become an offering that represents, right? Represents the represents the children of Israel. The Levites themselves is the offering. It is a very interesting ritual that instead of bringing just offerings in chapter 7, the Levites become their offering in chapter 8 to be presented to God, so that they are now dedicated to serve, right? To serve or do the work of the Lord. The work of the Lord is the service and whatever God instructs them to do in the tabernacle. This is what it means. And so the Levites are now representing the sons of Israel by the laying on of hands. The understand this, the laying on of hands is not just to touch the person. It's very much like the Day of Atonement, when the high priest has to lay their hands on the goat to be sent away. And that is really resting hard onto the head of the goat. In this case, they'll be laying hard their hands on the persons of the Levites. So we're not told on which part of the body, and that should come from their oral traditions. In verse 12, after this, the Levites then in turn lay their hands on the heads of the young bulls. And you shall offer one as a sin offering and the other as a burnt offering to the Lord. First of all, the sin offering is to make atonement for the Levites, and the burnt offering is a matter of thanksgiving. Now, the whole picture here is to make sure that all the unintentional sins are cleansed, They are covered, right? Atonement means to cover. And the laying on of hands is to support their hands on the heads of the young bulls, 2 of them, by the way, 1 as a sin offering and 2 as a burnt offering. And that would be performed. Now moving forward to verse 13. In verse 13, then it says, you shall stand before Aaron and his sons. You would be Moses. Now you shall stand, the Levites, before Aaron and his sons. Aaron and his sons would be the Kohanim. They are the priests, right? They are the priesthood. And then offer them a wave offering to the Lord. So Aaron and his sons will be standing in the front of the Ohel of Moab. And then in front of them will be all the Levites that the sons of Israel had laid or supported their hands on, in a way committed it to God, to the Levites, everything that is by the 12 tribes. And in this way, you shall separate the Levites from among the children of Israel, and the Levites shall be mine. Now, we've seen this in chapter 3 and 4, especially in chapter 4, where the Levites, God says, is mine. But there is a ritual that God formalizes, not just the redemption sum, but in this case, you find that they are now dedicated in a ritual. In verse 13, you would find that 13 and 14, you find that the whole idea of separate, this would be to set apart. And this would be a very visual and a vivid imagery. You can actually see that the Levites are going to be very different. Now, instead of the Levites, like the 12 tribes, bringing in offerings, the Levites become the offering of the children or the sons of Israel. And now, as they are being offered to God, God says, the Levites shall be mine. And in this case, affirmed their dedication. You see, God, although has said that the Levites are mine and they are redeemed based on the redemption sum that we saw in chapter 4, there is a ritual that was actually done to set them apart. And this is that ritual. Now, after that, the Levites shall go into the service of the tabernacle of meeting. What do? They actually do work in the tabernacle. So you shall cleanse them and offer them like a wave offering, for they are wholly given to me from among the children of Israel. So it's symbolic that they have been taken or offered to God by their brethren. That's basically it, right? And they are holy. When they are holy means what? There is no exception to the tribe of Levi. And God says, I have taken them for myself. Now understand that this is an A and a B, right? Given to me is an A. Taken them for myself is a B. It's the same thing. One is the giving and one is the taking. And God has accepted from the children of Israel, or the sons of Israel, the Levites for this particular purpose. And now God explains, which we should know by now, that instead of all who opened the womb, the firstborn of the children of Israel, all who opened the womb is an A, the firstborn of Israel is the B. Open the womb means the first child that comes out from the womb. That's when the womb opens. So and that child would be the firstborn. And when we talk about firstborn, they're all males. And we have seen this, I think in where have we seen this? We have seen this in the book of Exodus. Exodus chapter 13. Right? God has said the firstborn is mine, because the Passover, or the first Passover in Egypt, is to deal with the firstborn. God is to kill all the firstborn of Egypt, all man and animals. And those of Israel would have the blood on the doorpost, and they will be spared. And so that in itself is a focus on the firstborn, and God is particular about the firstborn. And so the firstborn that was spared, that the angel of the Lord, the destroyer, came and skipped over the houses of Israel with the blood, God says, these firstborn that didn't die is mine. For all the firstborn among the children of Israel are mine, both man and beast. On the day that I struck the firstborn in the land of Egypt, I sanctify them to myself. So go back and read Exodus chapter 13. So understand that the Passover with the firstborn has to do with what is happening now. Now, God has changed his demands. He didn't want the firstborn anymore. And in Numbers chapter 4, there was a swap around where the firstborn is now given back to the families, called redemption or redeemed, back to where they originally came from. And that firstborn was actually given at Passover. Now God says, I want the levy. So I have taken the Levites instead of the firstborn of the children of Israel. And I have given the Levites as a gift to Aaron and his sons from among the children of Israel to do the work for the children of Israel in the tabernacle of meeting, and to make atonement for the children of Israel, that there will be no plague among the children of Israel when the children of Israel come near the sanctuary. Now understand that the whole function of the the Levites, is to, one, camp around the tabernacle, to be a buffer so that the children of Israel do not accidentally walk into the tabernacle. And number two, to bring all their gifts and offerings into the tabernacle and to assist in all the work within the tabernacle. And who are actually doing the ritual? It will be Aaron and his sons. And so now we understand that the Levites, now understand, Aaron and the sons are Levites as well. All right. But they are special Levites. Moses is also a Levite, and he's a special Levite. Now, the rest of the narrative don't talk about Moses. Moses is very much in the Torah and in the book of Numbers as a spokesman for God. God speaks to Moses. Moses will speak and direct these commands to Aaron, his sons, and the sons of Israel. Now, the Levites, now God has taken, and now God is giving to Aaron and his sons. So understand that there is a very interesting idea here. So let me just highlight. We have the 12 tribes, and by the 12 tribes, there is no Levites. All right. And so we have the 10 tribes plus Ephraim plus Manasseh, right? And with them, they commit the Levites to God. And so they lay their hands on the Levites and commit them to God. And so they are passed on to God, and the text tells us that God takes them, and then God passes it to Aaron and sons. Now, this is the last part that we're reading here. So all you can see is this is the dedication of the Levites to God, and Aaron and sons represent the work that God has committed them to. And so the entirety of the work of the tabernacle now belongs to these two groups. And that is how it's done. Let's carry on. Verse 20. Thus, in this way, Moses and Aaron and all the congregation of the children of Israel did to the Levites, laying hands on them, committing them to God. God received them and took them and then gave them to Aaron and sons, according to all that the Lord commanded Moses concerning the Levites. And so the children of Israel did to them. This is a very intricate ritual for Aaron, the congregation of the sons of Israel, the Levites, and they did everything. And basically we can see that this is what we call hearing God's command, doing exactly as said, no questions asked. Basically, it's like a parent telling a child, go pick up the toys and put it into that basket. And nobody would ask, why that basket? Why can't I put it under the chair? Well, you have spoken. You are the parent. You are the king of the house. And so all the child needs to do is to obey and not question that. And so God's tabernacle, God's rules, and Moses spoke to Aaron. Aaron spoke to, and then Moses spoke to the children of Israel, committed the Levites to God. God committed them to Aaron and sons, and that's done. Verse 21. And the Levites purified themselves, washed their clothes. Now we've read that, how to clean themselves with water, right? And Aaron presented them like a wave offering before the Lord. Aaron made atonement for them to cleanse them. Now, all the ritual is about cleansing, right? You wash your clothes, you tread on your clothes, you sprinkle with cleansing, purifying water. You offer like a wave offering. You bring one bull as a sin offering, one bull as a burnt offering. After that, the Levites went to do their work in the tabernacle of meeting before Aaron and sons, as the Lord commanded Moses concerning the Levites. So they did to them. All we are told up to verse 22 is they did exactly what God said. I just want to impress upon us this afternoon that the children of Israel, the congregation, the leaders there who represented the houses of Israel or the various tribes, were very compliant at this point in time because they could see the tabernacle up. They made their offerings. Now the Levites are dedicated. Verse 23 gives us a second picture, and this one is about what the Levites can and cannot do. The Lord Jehovah spoke to Moses. Again, this is like verse 1. This is what, now understand that this word pertains is not in the Hebrew, but we would say that we can safely say that this, whatever God is speaking, this is to the Levites, or this is regarding the Levites. That's what the word to, or for the Levites. We could use that word as well. For the Levites. And understand there are specifics. Now, this is God's specifics. This is not Moses specific. This is not a Jewish specific. From 25 years old. Now, understand this. When God counted the Israelites in Numbers chapter 1 and 2, 20 years and above, that they go to war, and they are now numbered for inheritance. In this case, for the Levites, it's 25 years old and above. Then they will enter into the service in the work of the tabernacle of meeting. That would be the sanctuary inside. And they retire at the age of 50. And God says they must cease performing this work. Now, the word in 25 basically means they must not work. Right? They must not work. And so this is the word cease. It is quite an absolute term, right? It's quite an absolute term. They must not do this anymore, right? They shall work no more. The idea here, how should we say? The word cease from performing really means to return, right? To return, to turn back from doing this work, right? So that's the word cease, and not work anymore. It's a very interesting Hebrew phrase, because it is to give a connotation that when they first started, they were not doing anything. And then they started to serve. And then the work has to be returned. So they must return back to the state before 25 years old starting the work. And so they do no more work. And so this really gives us an A and a B. Returning from this work and do no more work is really talking about the same thing. Verse 26, they may minister with their brethren in the tabernacle of meeting, but only to do these things, to attend to needs, but they shall do no work. Now understand, the word no work means no service, no Levitical service in the tabernacle. Now, what is so special about this? They may minister. Now, this is very interesting. Verse 26 says they may minister, they may attend, right? They may attend, they may serve with their brethren in the tabernacle of meeting, but not the service in the tabernacle. And this idea here is to attend to the needs. This really means to keep or to guard and to guard the office, right? To guard the office, but they themselves shall do no service in the tabernacle. Thus you shall do to the Levites regarding their duties. Now, the interesting thing is this. No service in the tabernacle is when the tabernacle is up and there are rituals that needs to be done. When they cross 50 years of age, they will stop. They start from 25 and to 50. Now, what else can they do is that they can still do the functions that was set apart for them in chapter 5, where Gershon, Merari, each of them has their work, and Kohath, the Kohath descendants will carry the implements of the tabernacle, and then they've got to wrap up all the cloths and the sheets and the boards and whatnot. That's what the Levites do, and so they can continue to do that, but they do not do the work in the tabernacle of meeting. Right? That's the picture that is given here. And with this, we would say, why would they need to retire at 50? Isn't there why does God have an age limit? And then there's a lot of speculation, but nevertheless, one can safely say this is God's demand of the peak time or a peak level of an individual then between the ages of 25 to 50 for God's purposes, 20 and above for war, right? And that would be God's decision and not man's decision. And with this, we can see in chapter 8 that they were very compliant and they were so instructed and they did accordingly. And with this, we come to the end of chapter 8.